G'day, this is Mr. Thompson. I'm going to show you how to turn your solar car results, like these ones here that I've got here, into a spreadsheet that looks like this. So you can see when I've got all my results into a spreadsheet, I can calculate average speed, I can work out whether my modifications made the car improve or made it worse, and I can put all that information into a summary table up here. It's a summary table, and I can graph that summary table here. So very quickly I can see how much faster here or how much slower here particular modifications made my car. All right, let's get started. I've opened up Microsoft Excel, and here I've got a brand new spreadsheet with nothing on it. So let's get started. Solar car results. I'm just going to put a heading there, press enter, and then using my arrow key, I'll go back up to that cell that I typed in, and I'm just going to make that bold, and I'm going to make it, using those buttons there, make it a bit bigger. Okay, so it's like a heading. All right, so my first modification that I want to create a table for, modification 1. Okay, hit enter, and I'll come across with my arrow keys to this cell here, and I'll say that was my 54 tooth drive gear. Okay, that was the modification that I made. Now, I want to record my race results. So remember, I had my control car racing against my modified car. So let's put control car here, and let's put modified car. So every time I type, I'm just pressing enter, and then I'm using my arrow keys to go to the cell that I want to go to next. Okay, so well, now here's a problem already. Those words control car, they didn't fit into the cell that I wanted to type them into. So I'm going to change the width of the cell. So if I come up here with my mouse, see between the D and the E, there's a line there. If I grab that line there, so not down here, but up here, if I grab that line between the D and the E, and I drag that like that, can you see that's made it wider? Very good. Now the other thing I can do, actually, a shortcut is I can double click on the line. So let's do for this one here, let's make this one wider as well. If I double click on that little line there, double click, it automatically makes it wide enough to fit whatever I put in that cell. So there we go. So I've got control car and I've got modified car. Okay, now over here I want race 1, race 2, race 3 written down there. So let's try that. Race 1. In fact, this is the race 1 time, isn't it? And I'm not just going to put time, I'm going to put in brackets S for seconds there. So whoever's reading it knows that it's in seconds, not hours or minutes or whatever. In seconds, race 1 time in seconds. Now I need to make that cell wider again too, don't I? So let me just do that, same way I did before, by grabbing that line in between the C and the D and moving it across. All right, race 1 time. Let's do that. Race 2 time in seconds. Race 3 time in seconds. And race 4 time also in seconds. Okay, so now I can start to put my data in. So here's my data over here in my table, and I'm just going to type that data into here. Now let me just show you something, a trap for young players. So my first data there, 5.26 seconds. So if I type 5.26 seconds, S for seconds, and hit enter. Okay, now that's a problem. What I've done there is I put that, by putting that S in there, Microsoft Excel thinks that that's not a number. It thinks it's just a piece of text. It thinks it's a bunch of letters, not numbers. If I want to use that number to maybe create averages or do calculations with, I've got to take all the letters out of that cell. I can't put that S in there. So I'm going to go back to this cell here. I'm going to click up there in the formula bar, and I'm going to backspace. I'm going to get rid of that S. Now watch when I hit the enter key now. Now you can see that that number there, 5.26, is over on the left-hand, or sorry, on the right-hand side of the cell. So let me just compare that again. If I put my second one in, 4.97 seconds, if I do that, okay, see how this number here is over on the left-hand side and this one's over on the right-hand side? That's because over here, Excel thinks that's just some text, and it won't be able to do any calculations with that number until I get rid of that S. So again, if I go into here, come up here and I backspace the S and hit enter. Now see it's on the right hand side. So Excel now thinks that that is a number, not a letter. So I'm going to put the rest of my data in, 4.97 and 4.96. Oh, not plus, 4.96. Enter. come back up to here with my arrow keys for my modified car, 5.92, enter, 5.77, enter, 5.33, enter, and 5.90, enter. Oh, now here's one more thing that we're going to look at. See how when I put 5.90, I actually typed 5.90, but Excel said, well, that 0 means nothing, so it's just recorded 5.9. But on my stopwatch actually said 5.90, and that 0 tells me how accurately I measured it. I want that 0 there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these cells here, and I'm going to adjust the number of decimal places. So here, decrease decimal place or increase decimal place. Okay, currently I've got, in that one there, I've got 1 decimal place. So I'm going to increase decimal places. Ooh, okay, so that's made them all 1, 2, 3 decimal places. I'm going to decrease again. Decrease, decrease. Oh, actually that'll do now. So now all of them have got 2 decimal places. So, and that 5.9 is being displayed as 5.90. So that's much better, right? The next thing I want to do is I want to have another row under here which has the average time. So I've done all these races and I've worked out how fast my car is going for each race, but what's the average time for all of those races? So let's write average time, and again that's in seconds. Hit enter. Oh, that's gone over. I'm going to make that a little bit wider again, fix that up. Okay, now what I could do is I could get out my calculator and I could go 5.26 plus 4.97 plus 4.97 plus 4.96. I could add them up and then equals and then divide by 4, and that would give me my average, my mean. However, I can do that more quickly. Excel is very good at calculating this stuff for us, so I can go equals average. Okay, so that equals, let me go back and do that again. As soon as I type equals, that tells Excel that the next thing I'm going to enter here is a calculation. So Excel will actually do the calculation for me. Anything that starts with an equal sign is a calculation. So there's a formula in Excel called average. So if I type average like that, and then open brackets, so that left-hand bracket. Now what I'm going to do is I could actually put those numbers in. I'm going to, instead of putting those numbers in one at a time, I'm going to click on the top cell there, and I'm just going to drag downwards until I've got all of those cells selected, and then lift up my mouse button, and you can see with them all selected I'm going to then type my right bracket, so shift 0, which is my right bracket, and then hit enter. So equals average of all of those cells. So 5.04. So if I went and got my calculator and I did that calculation, you would find that my answer is 5.04. It's calculated the average for me. And the nice thing about that is, let's say I went and did all these calculations, and then I realized, oops, I actually had made a mistake. This one here wasn't 5.26, it was actually, maybe it was 4.26. And if I make this change here, watch this, 4.26. Now watch here, watch there when I press the enter key. It's automatically updated the average for me. So Excel is smart enough to automatically update. If I put a formula in there, it'll automatically update that formula if I change any of these cells, the input cells up here. Okay, I'm just going to undo that because I wanted my 5.26, but you can see how useful that might be. All right, now I could do the same over here. I could type equals average, open bracket, and select all of those, and like that, and then close my bracket and then hit enter, and that would give me 5.73. Let me show you a quicker way. It's not quicker because I've already done it, but if I hadn't already done it, there's a quicker way to do that. What I could do is I could come over here to this average, this one here that I've already created. That's the average of all of those. And in fact, here's a trick. If I've selected a cell, if I press F2 on my computer, F2, see how it sort of goes into that cell and it shows me the formula, and it also shows me which cells are the inputs to my formula. Anyway, I'm going to press enter again. I'm going to come back here, I'm going to select that cell. Now see that big box on the bottom right of that cell? Not so big, is it? But that box there called a handle. That's an autofill handle. We're going to use what do you call it? A feature of Excel called autofill. And I'm going to grab that box there. So see, as I move over that box that my cursor changes, if I move over it, if I grab it, and if I drag that box over here, what that's going to do is Excel is going to take whatever was in that cell there and it's going to copy it over to here. Except it's not quite going to just copy it exactly. Let's have a look. If I press F2 here, F2, you can see that it's taken the average of these cells. Whereas if I come, let's click away, let's click here, and if I click F2, it's taken the average of all these cells above it. So very clever. So I've moved that formula, or I've dragged using the autofill from that formula there over to this one here, and it's clever enough to work out that if that cell there created an average of all of those cells, then this cell here should create an average of all of these cells, the cells above it. Now, I'd like to work out my average speed, not just my average time, but my speed. How fast was the car going? Now, you may remember, let me get a pen here. You may remember that speed, if I want speed equals distance divided by time. So I need to know my distance and my time. Okay, so if I look up my race results, here we go, there's my race results there. I know that my race, for this race here, for modification 1, I raced over a distance of 4.8 meters. So that's my distance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to put in my spreadsheet, let's see, distance in meters, and that was 4.8. Now remember, I can't put 4.8 m, just 4.8. And over here, I also want 4.8 because they both raced over the same distance, both raced over 4.8. Now I can calculate, because I've got my average time and I've got my distance, that's what I need in my formula. I've got my distance and I've got my average time. I can calculate my average speed. So let's come over here. Average speed, and that's going to be in meters per second. Average speed meters per second. Okay, now you know how to adjust this. Let's just do that. Okay, my average speed in meters per second. Now again, I want to use a formula. I want distance divided by time. So I'm going to say equals. It tells Excel, hey Excel, I want you to calculate something. Distance. All right, so let's click on distance. That's my distance there. So that cell, it says D10. You can see that cell D10. So let's put D10 there. So D10 divided by, now there's no divided by on my keyboard, so I can just use this fraction bar. That means in Excel, we use a fraction bar to mean divided by. So distance divided by time. Okay, so I want my average time because I want my average speed, so I'm going to use my average time for that. So distance divided by time. Now if I press enter, there we go, it's calculated my average speed. My average speed is 0.952380952 meters per second. Okay, that's a bit silly. We haven't got that much accuracy. What I'd like to do is I'd like to round that to 2 decimal places. That would be more sensible, wouldn't it? So let me do that. I'm going to come up to here again and I'm going to use my decrease decimal places, and I'm going to keep clicking that until it comes down to 2 decimal places. Okay, that's pretty sensible, isn't it? All right. Now what I'm going to do is, instead of typing all that again, I'm going to use my autofill function again. So I'm going to grab that autofill handle. I'm going to drag it across like that. There we go. So that tells me that my modified car had an average speed of 0.84 meters per second. So it went 0.84 of a meter. What's that? 84 centimeters? It went 84 meters every second. That seems about right, doesn't it? And this one here, my control car, went 0.95 or 95 centimeters every second. Okay, so this wasn't a very good modification, wasn't it? This modification actually slowed my car down. That makes sense, doesn't it? Because if I look at my average time, on average my time was about 5 seconds for my control car, and my modified car, the average time was about 5.7 seconds, so closer to 6 seconds. So it was definitely going slower, and we can see that the average speed, my formula agrees with that. 0.95 meters per second is faster than 0.84 meters per second. All right, now what I'd like to do is I'd like to work out how much improvement my modification made. Well, in fact, this one didn't make an improvement, did it? But let's do it anyway. Let's see what happens. So what I'm going to calculate is my speed improvement. Speed improvement in meters per second. So in other words, how many meters per second faster was my car when I made the modification? So let me just make that wider again. Okay. my speed improvement is going to be, let's go equals, it's going to be a formula. It's going to be the speed of my modified car minus the speed of my control car. So that's going to be the improvement. And it's a negative number. Now that makes sense, doesn't it? Because if I'm asking how much did my speed improve by, but my car didn't improve at all, actually got worse, then I've got a negative improvement. So that negative number means that it actually, my modified car was actually going at 0.11 meters per second slower, not faster, than my control car. So that makes sense. All right. What I'd like to do though is I'd like to know that improvement as a percentage. So what percentage faster or what percentage slower was my modified car than my control car? So let's do that. Let's go speed improvement. But this time, instead of in meters per second, I'm going to calculate it as a percentage. All right. Okay, so the formula we're going to use for this one, we're going to say the percent improvement equals, now remember a percentage is a comparison. We're comparing two numbers. What we're going to compare is we're going to compare the improvement, so the speed improvement, which we just calculated, and we're going to compare that to the speed of the, running out of room, the speed of the control car. Okay, there we go. So we take the improvement divided by the speed of the control car, comparing those two, and then express that as a percentage. That should give us what we want. Let's see how we do that in Excel. Okay, so over here, I'm going to say the percent improvement, okay, equals, so what have we got first? Improvement, that's that number there, divided by what was the average speed of the control car. So I'm comparing the speed of the improvement speed compared with the speed of the control car, equals. All right, now that's given us, what's that given us? That's given us a decimal. I'd really like that to be a percentage though. So to convert that into a percentage, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to here. I actually don't have to do any maths because Excel can do this for me. If I come up here and if I click on this percentage button here, that automatically converts that decimal into a percentage. So let me unclick it again. So if I click on it, no, I'll undo it. There we go. Undo it. So that's what we had, 0.12. And of course, you'll remember from maths last term that 0.12 is 12% if we round it off. In fact, it's negative 0.12, which is going to be negative 12%. So you can see when I click on this percent button here, like that, it expresses that decimal as a percent button. It's interesting. Excel actually remembers the decimal in that cell, but it's just displaying it as a percentage. All right. So our speed improvement was minus 12%. So what we're saying is our modified car went 12% slower than our control car. All right, so there's our first modification done. Actually, you know what? Let me just tidy this up a little bit. I'm going to make that. Let's select those cells there and make them bold like that. And let's make this look like a table. So I'm going to select all of this stuff here, and we'll come up here and make that look like a table by clicking on all borders. Come over here, click on all that, make that look like a table by putting borders there. I'll make that look like a little table and putting borders there. And let's pick out the important information. So there's some headings there. We'll make them bold. And in fact, this information here, that's sort of summary information, isn't it? This is about each individual race up here. That's about each individual race. And down here is summary information. So let me just select all of those. And because it's summary information, let's give it a color. I don't know. We don't want to go too dark, otherwise we can't read it. So something light. Yeah. Okay. Let's go blue. I like blue. Okay. And down here, this is also summary information. I'm going to make that blue as well. Okay. So just tidy that up a little bit. All right. So now I'm done for my first modification, but I've got two more modifications to enter. Modification 2, modification 3. The good news is I don't have to type it all out again. I can just do some cutting and pasting. So let's have a look at that. So I come over here and I'm going to select, with my mouse, select that whole table there. and I'm going to use my shortcut keys, Control C to copy. You see little marching ants going around the outside. Now if I come down here to leave a spare row there, and then go Control V, then come down the bottom again, and leaving another spare row, and Control V again. Okay, and now I can press Escape to get rid of the marching ants. They're gone because I've finished pasting. And now you can see I've got 3 different tables. So all I need to do now is come into here and just change modification 1 to modification 2. And I'll come down to modification here and make that modification 3. And I'm just going to change this information. So this one here, let's see, that was my 30mm wheels. So 30mm wheels. And down here was my tilted solar panel. Tilted solar panel. Okay, they were things that seemed to make quite a difference. All right. Now, of course, I've still got my modification 1 data in there, so I'm just going to delete all that data. Delete. Oh, and it's created a whole bunch of errors. That's okay, because I can fix those later. And I'll come down here as well, and I'm going to delete all my data. Now, notice when I'm deleting, I'm not deleting my formulas, because when I put my new data in there, those formulas will still work. But I've just deleted the data. So I've taken all my race data out of there. So I've left it in my first one, but I've just taken it out of my second one and my third one. And I'm going to now type my new data in. And when I type my new data in, you'll see that it'll automatically adjust these. So I'm going to do this very quickly. I'll put me on fast forward. So let's see how I go. All right, so there we go. Now, did you notice that as I typed those in, all the formulas have recalculated everything for me, except there's a problem here. My distance, when I did my first race, my distance was 8.4 meters, but for my other races, I did 7.5 meters and 7.5 meters, and that's because this one here, I did it at home on my driveway, and these ones here, I did on the basketball courts. So now, really, in science, we should make sure everything's constant, but there are sometimes we can't make sure everything's constant between races. Now, I probably could have measured out 4.8 meters, but you know what? It's not going to be a problem because my speed improvement is a percentage. So whether I did 7.5 meters or 10 meters or 20 meters, as long as I do the correct calculations and work out my percent improvement, I'll still be able to compare one modification with another modification. We'll talk about that a little bit more in class. I haven't explained that very well. But anyway, but let's have a look. On my spreadsheet, I just need to adjust that. So modification 2 is not 4.8 meters, it's 7.5 meters. So I need to adjust that. And 7.5 meters. And down here on modification 3 also needs to be 7.5 and 7.5. Now that's a lot of data. What we need to do now is put that into a summary table and then create a graph, so it's a lot easier for someone to look at this and tell very quickly what all this data means. So I'm going to click over here and I'm going to type another little heading, summary of speed improvements. Okay, and there we go. And I'm going to bold that because it's a little heading. Now I'm going to create another little table. Okay, modification. And over here I want the improvement as a percentage. Okay. Now I need to make my columns a bit wider. There we go. Modification and improvement. Good. Okay, so my first modification was 54 tooth drive gear. Now I'm not going to type that in. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to put equals, and I'm going to tell to Excel, you know what, just write whatever I wrote there. So press enter. Click over there and enter, and it's just copied. Not even copied. It's got a live copy there. So if I actually came over here and if I change something, so if I maybe put a, I don't know, let's put a hyphen in there. Oh, see how that hyphen now appeared there as well. So what it's saying is that cell is whatever that one is. Okay, and we'll do that again here. So we want our 30mm wheels to be there, enter, and then equals that cell there, enter. Okay, so there I've got all my modifications listed. Now, next to each modification, I want to know how much improvement that modification made. So again, I'm not going to copy. I'm going to use my, I'm going to tell Excel to calculate. It's not really calculate, but to link. So if I press equals there, equals, what was my improvement? My improvement was minus 12%. Enter. Okay, down on my next one, I'm going to type equals and come down to 1%. That was my improvement. And for my tilted solar panel down here, my tilted solar panel, my improvement was equals, my improvement was 27%. Enter. Okay, so if I come back up here, you can see now that's my summary of improvements. And again, let's just tidy that up a bit. Let's add a bit of color. Let's use a different color this time, maybe some, I don't know, some orange. Make my headings bold, and put it all in a table so it looks like a table. So I add some borders, there we go. Okay, so I've got my modification with my improvements. And you know what, if I wanted to, I could even, I select that whole bit there and make that center justified. Yeah, that looks a bit better, doesn't it? Anyway, that's all just personal taste. All right, now we're going to add a graph. So to add a graph is fairly straightforward. Let me just select that summary table. So now that I've got my summary table, I can easily tell Excel to graph that information there. So if I go over to my insert, over here, insert, and I'm going to go to recommended charts. You could actually go and pick the chart that you want from here. I think recommended charts is pretty good. It'll give us a choice and we can choose whichever one we think looks most sensible. So if I click on recommended charts, okay, and it's thinking, there it goes. And it gives me some choices. So I could use that one there, I could use that one there, I could use that one there, I could use that one there. I think this one here makes more sense, doesn't it? Remember my 54 tooth gear actually made it, there's 0%. So that's showing a negative improvement going downwards. That's showing a very small positive improvement, and that's showing quite a large positive improvement. So I'm going to use that column, I'm going to use that clustered column. So I'm going to click on OK there, and there we go, it's created my graph for me. And I'm just going to move that graph up to here, and I'm going to make it, maybe make it a little bit bigger. Okay, good. All right, now let me just tidy this up a little bit. So I'm going to click here in the title. I think we can, I'm not going to just call it improvement percent, give it a better title. I'm going to say this is the effect of modifications to a solar car. That's a more sensible title, isn't it? Okay, now the other things I'm going to do, I need to add some axis titles. So I'm just going to click somewhere over on the chart, just a blank section of the chart, maybe there, and this plus sign appears. All right, so if I click on plus, I want to add some axis titles. So if I click there, you can see now it's added an axis title there and an axis title there. Excellent. So this title here, if I click here and use my mouse, let's just delete all that, and instead I'm going to type percent improvement. So that's the improvement that my modification made. And actually, you know what, over here I don't think I need this title here because I've got these labels already. So I'm going to click on that one there and delete. All right, and now what I'd like to do, I'd like to move these words here, these labels here, I'd like to move them down the bottom. So I'm going to click on them. In fact, I'm going to double click. If I double click on that title there, what it'll do, it'll give me this format axis over here. And if I come down to the bottom here, so I've got that axis, it gives me a whole bunch of different options. The only ones I'm interested in are these ones over here on the right hand side, axis options, and down the bottom where it says labels. Okay, and my labels, I want my label position. At the moment it's next to my axis, so they're all sitting just under 0%, but I'd rather have them down the bottom here. So I'm going to click down here and I'm going to put the label position to be low. Okay, so it's down the bottom. And that's a pretty good graph. I think that's pretty much done. You know what? I'm a little bit pedantic. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make one more little change. I'm going to try and make it more obvious that this one here is a negative improvement. So to do that, I'm going to change the color of that one. So if I click on it once, and see when I clicked on it once, all of these bars, all these columns were selected. If I click on it again, now see only this bottom here one is selected. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come across to here, choose that bucket there, and click on fill, and I'm going to make it a solid fill, and I'm going to make it, actually it did it for me, I'm going to make it red, because red sort of means negative. So now when I click away, that's a pretty good looking graph, isn't it? All right, one more thing I'm going to do. You have to print this so that you can hand it in. So let me just quickly show you how to do that. I'm going to go File, and then Print. Okay, and it'll give me something. Well, that's dumb, isn't it? Because that gives me well, actually, it's not too bad, I guess. It gives me a table, and on my next page, it gives me it gives me half a graph, and then it gives me a little bit more of a graph. Okay, so that's pretty dumb. Let's fix it. So what I'm going to do over here is, first thing I'm going to do, instead of having a portrait sheet, I'd rather have a landscape. So where it says orientation, I'm going to change that to landscape. Okay, and thinking, it should, there we go, landscape, so that's better. But I'm going to come down here on the bottom one here. At the moment it says no scaling. Instead of no scaling, I'm going to put fit sheet on one page. Fit sheet on one page. And there we go. Now I've got all my information there. When I click on print over here, when I click print, it'll print all that onto one page. Beautiful. All right. Now, the other thing I've been doing is I've been saving as I go. I hope you've been doing the same. I haven't told you to do that. Hopefully you do that anyway. So I've just clicked on save there. And that's done. I'm going to save that, probably email it to myself, so I've got a copy that's nice and secure that I'm not easily going to lose when my USB goes through the washing machine or the dog eats it or something. And I think you're pretty much done. I hope this has been helpful.